Hello students, so this is the second part of chapter 4, and in this presentation I will be covering context of development, overview of developmental stages, under which there will be prenatal stage, infancy and childhood, and at last I will explain gender and sex roles. Now let's talk about the context of development. In the last presentation I told you all about the factors that influence development. One is the genotype and phenotype, yes, the genes, the heredity, and second is the environment. So here the context of development, under which we come to know that the background, the environment plays an important role in development, right? So development is always embedded in a particular socio-cultural context, and transition during one's lifetime, such as entering school, becoming an adolescent, finding jobs, marrying, having children, retirement, etc., all are joint functions of the biological changes and changes in one's environment. So for this, there are two psychologists who has given us a theory of their own because they have studied on the context of development, the background, the environment, which plays an important role. The first one was Yuri Bronfenbrenner. He was an American psychologist and he formulated the ecological systems theory to explain how the inherent qualities of children and their environments interact to influence how they grow and develop. His contextual view of development emphasizes the role of environmental factors in the development of an individual. In this diagram, we see Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory. Now, Bronfenbrenner's ecological model organizes context of development into 5 levels of external influence. Okay, pointed out it is external influence, not internal influence. And these levels are categorized from the most intimate level to the broadest. So here the level starts from the microsystem. Alright, this is the most intimate level, followed by mesosystem, then next exosystem, next macrosystem, and last chronosystem. Now let's check these levels one by one in details. The first level, as I said, is the microsystem. The name itself suggests microsystem. So it is the smallest and most immediate environment in which children live. So when it is an immediate environment, it comprises the daily home, school or daycare, peer group, and community environment of the children, right? Now interactions within the microsystem typically involve personal relationships with family members, classmates, teachers, and caregivers. Now, how these groups or individuals interact with the children will affect how they grow. Yes, how the children interact with his or her teacher, his or her parents, his or her classmates, caregivers, that will affect how the child will grow. And each child's particular personality traits such as temperament, which is influenced by unique genetic and biological factors, ultimately have a hand in how she or he is treated by others. Therefore, given two siblings experiencing the same microsystem, it is possible for the development of them to progress in different manners. That means if two siblings are in the same home, yes, they are meeting their parents, yes, every day they have their parents are same. But why it is so that the two siblings, the brother or a sister, or the two brothers, two sisters, they have different personalities? Why? One is very shy, other is very extrovert, very talkative. Why? Because of the way they are being treated. by the others, the way their parents treat them, the way the other people treat them. That all matters for the development of personality traits. Okay, moving on to the second level, it is mesosystem. Now, the mesosystem encompasses the interaction of the different microsystems which children find themselves in, and it involves linkages between home and school, between peer group and family, and between family and community. All right. So mesosystem is little broader than the microsystem, where in mesosystem there is interaction between the linkages between home and school. That means how the teachers are interacting with the parents, or how parents are interacting with the, or the family is interacting with the friends of their children. All right. Now, if a child's parents are actively involved in the friendships of their child, for example, they invite their child's friends over to their house from time to time and spend time with them, then the child's development is affected positively through harmony and like-mindedness. Getting the point? Now imagine another picture where the child's parents doesn't interact with the friends of the child, doesn't call them, doesn't invite them. And even if the parents do not allow the child to go and play with the friends over there, the peers over there, doesn't allow them, then of course it will have a negative effect on them, isn't it? But however, if the child's parents dislike their child's peers and openly criticize them, then the child experiences disequilibrium and conflicting emotions, which will likely lead to negative development, just like how I said. Alright? The third level that we have is the exosystem. Now, the exosystem pertains to the linkages that may exist between two or more settings, one of which may not contain the developing children but affect them indirectly nonetheless. People and places that children may not directly interact with may still have an impact on their lives, and it may include parents' workplaces, extended family members, and the neighborhood the children live in. So here, with an example, it will be more clear about the exosystem, how it affects in the development of the child. Now look at this example. The transfer of father or mother may cause tension among the parents, which might affect the interactions with the child. Yes. Now, if there is any transfer of father or mother, this may cause tension among the parents. And when a person is under tension, under stress, under worry, of course, it might affect the interactions, the way they treat their child. Maybe because of tension, they might be always angry. Even with small things, they might scold the child. This might happen. And with it, maybe the child might develop some kind of negativity towards the whole situation. And if the child is young, then of course the child will not understand the reason behind their parents, either of them, either the mother or the father, the way they're treating them, it is not understandable on the part of the child. So this may cause a little bit of hamper in the development of the child. Okay, emotional development basically. And the general amenities available to the child like quality schooling, libraries, medical care, means of entertainment, etc. This all might be affected just because of the transfer of father or mother. Alright? So one change of living might affect the whole system of the family. That's what is exosystem. Alright? Even though not directly but indirectly, it is having an effect on the child, on the child's development. Next, we have macrosystem. Macrosystem, it is the next level and also the largest and most distant collection of people and places to the children that still have significant influences on them. And it is composed of the children's cultural patterns and values, specifically their dominant beliefs. All right, dominant beliefs and ideas, as well as political and economic systems. For example, children in war-torn areas, war-torn, where there was war once upon a time, and in those areas, the children in those areas will experience a different kind of development than children in peaceful environments. Yes or no? Do you agree with this fact? Of course, if a child is always in between gunshots, bomb blasts, and all, like that of uh, Syria is such kind of place where children, their development is very much hampering because of the fact that they never get peaceful environment. And the way a child develops in a peaceful environment, everything is harmonious in nature. But in areas where there is, most of the time there is war going on, gunshots going on, how can you say that it is a peaceful environment? Of course, it is a very disturbing environment. And development in a disturbing area, it will hamper the whole positive development of the child. Okay. Next, and the last level is the chronosystem. Now, the chronosystem adds the useful dimension of time, which demonstrates the influence of both change and constancy in the children's environments. And it involves events in the individual's life course and socio-historical circumstances of the time, such as a change in family structure, address, divorce of parents or parents' employment status, as well as immense society changes such as economic cycles and wars. Now, this is the dimension of time. Yes, with time, our development also changes. And this is the largest of all, the chronosystem, the broadest level we can say. Now here, with the change in one of the chronosystem, of course it will affect the development. If your parents' employment status changes, if there is divorce in the family, divorce between the parents, of course it also have a different kind of effect on the child. If the couple has a child, parents divorce will, of course it will have uh, an effect on the child. Change in the family structure, that means if there is death in the family, and even if there is birth in the family, then also the family structure changes. Yes, if someone is married, of course a new member comes in the family, then also the family structure changes. Yes, that is why the chrono system, it adds the dimension of time. Okay, and this demonstrates the influence of both change and constancy in the children's environments. All right. So Bronfenbrenner's view is that a child's development is significantly affected by the complex world that envelopes her or him, whether it be the miniature of the conversations she or he has with her or his playmates, or the social and economic life circumstances into which she or he is born. So this is what Bronfenbrenner's view suggests about the child's development. Okay, how the environment plays an important, significant role in the development of the child. Now the next person is Durganand Sinha. He was an Indian psychologist. Durganand Sinha in 1997 has presented an ecological model as well for understanding the development of children in Indian context. Alright, so ecology of the child could be viewed in terms of two concentric layers according to Durganand Sinha. The first layer, he called it as the upper layer, that means the more visible layer, and this layer consists of home, school, peer groups and so on, and elements of visible upper layer are home, that is its conditions in terms of overcrowding, space available to each member, toys, technological devices used, etc. Second, there is nature and quality of schooling facilities to which the child is exposed to. And third, nature of interactions and activities undertaken with peer groups. Okay, the way they interact with their friends and the activities they engage in with their friend circle. These are all visible, and because this is visible and it is most vital, that is why this is included in the upper layer. Second is the surrounding layer of the child's ecology. Now it influences the upper layer's factors, and elements of surrounding layer is the general geographical environment, which includes space and facilities outside the home, including general congestion of the locality and density of population. Alright, second is institutional setting provided by caste, class and other factors. And third, general amenities available to the child like drinking water, electricity, means of entertainment and so on. So these are all the secondary factors which involves in the surrounding layer. Okay. So the first is the upper layer which is more visible, and second is the surrounding layer which actually influences the upper layer. Alright. So these are the two layers which Durgan and Sinha talked about. So the visible and the surrounding layer factors interact with one another and may have different consequences for development in different people. Now, to understand differences in the functioning of an individual, it is very important to see the individual in the context of his or her experiences, because we also know that every child's experience is not same because of the surrounding layer which influences the upper layer. Okay, so our surroundings basically influences our home condition, our schooling facilities, nature and quality where the child is exposed to, and the nature of interactions. Okay, the way the child is engaged with the activities along with their friends and friend circle. So this is how Dogan and Sinha has portrayed the two layers. So with this we see that is even Bronfen Ulrich Bronfenbrenner as well as Durgan and Sinha, both of them has given most importance to the environmental surrounding. Next, let's move on to the overview of developmental stages. So far, we know what does development mean. Yes. So development is commonly described in terms of periods or stages as well, and human life proceeds through different stages. So for example, you are at present in the stage of adolescence, and after a few years you will enter the stage of adulthood. Alright. So developmental stages are assumed to be temporary and are often characterized by a dominant feature or a leading characteristic which gives each period its uniqueness. Let us see some of the developmental tasks. So the task which arises at or about a certain period in the life of the individual, successful achievement of which leads to happiness and to success with later tasks. So basically we have certain milestones to reach at certain ages. Okay. So some tasks arise mainly as a result of physical maturation, such as learning to walk. A child or an infant as soon as he or she born doesn't learn how to walk, doesn't even know how to sit. Yes, until and unless the bones are not mature enough, the child doesn't learn to walk, is not able to walk actually. And others develop primarily from the cultural pressures of society, such as learning to read, and still others grow out of the personal values to read. Alright, so with each stage, each developmental stages of our life, there are certain milestones to reach. Alright, we have to achieve those milestones in order to have a proper development in time. So developmental tasks serve the following useful purposes. Let's see what are the useful purposes of these developmental tasks. First is that they are guidelines that enable individuals to know what society expects of them at given ages. Like I said, parents, for example, can be guided in teaching their young children different skills by knowledge that society expects the children to master at certain ages. By the age of 4 or 5, of course, the society wants that the child goes to a school. Even before that, the society starts telling the parents that you should, give the name of your child in the play school, so that the child goes to a play school and at least spends some time over there, learns something, reaches the developmental tasks over there, knows how to hold certain objects and all. Physical movement should be there. So this is all because of the reason that the society expects of the child. All right. Second, these tasks, that is the developmental tasks, motivate individuals to do what the social group expects them to do at certain ages during their lives. Like I said. Number three, developmental tasks show individuals what lies ahead and what they will be expected to do when they reach their next stage of development. Of course, so developmental tasks basically show the individuals what is in store in future and what they will be expected to do when they reach their next stage of development. All right, so when the child goes to the play school, of course the people around him will keep on telling him that yes, next year you will be doing this tasks again. After that, again he will be said by the parents or by the teachers that you know next year you will reach standard 1, a standard 2, and basically what is it, it is actually telling the child that what lies ahead. That means what he or she is capable of doing, and that he or she will be capable of doing in the next stage of their developmental age, not before. Okay, so these are the three useful purposes of developmental tasks. Below in this slide you will see that these are the different stages of development. So first comes prenatal stage, followed by infancy, then childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and lastly old age. So let us go through these stages one by one in details. Alright. The first stage is the prenatal stage. Now the prenatal stage is the period from conception to birth. Alright. From conception, that means from the time the fetus is there in the womb, from that period onwards, development starts. And this stage usually lasts for about 40 weeks. The prenatal development is affected by maternal characteristics, which includes mother's age, mother's nutrition, and mother's emotional state. In the prenatal stage, whatever the mother is going through, whether it is health related issue or emotional state, this all affects the development of the fetus. Okay, so what is the source of threat to prenatal development? The source of threat in this stage can be disease or infection carried by the mother, can adversely affect prenatal development. For example, there is measles, okay, rubella, German measles, genital herpes, and human immunodeficiency virus (HIV), which are believed to cause genetic problems in the newborn. Alright, then second is teratogens, which are the environmental agents that cause deviations in the normal development that can lead to serious abnormalities or death. Now, common teratogens include drugs, injections, radiations, and pollutions. And these are the things that might affect the development of uh, a child. The development of the fetus in the womb might affect because of this reason. Suppose intake of drugs, alcohol, tobacco, etc. by the mother during pregnancy may have harmful effects on the fetus and increase the frequency of congenital abnormalities. Maybe the child might have certain kind of deformities. Okay, there might be issues like that of Down syndrome might be there, abnormalities might be there because of the intake of drugs when the mother was pregnant. Second, radiations and certain chemicals near industrial areas can cause permanent change in the genes. Mm, if I have to tell you about an incident, that is the Hiroshima and Nagasaki incident that happened over there because of the nuclear bombing, which became a historic incident. At that time, the mothers who were pregnant, the radiations and the chemicals affected the pregnant lady, and the fetus in the womb were affected, because of which there are so many cases of Down syndrome, because there was change in the genes over there. So genes got changed, and then maybe for some chromosomes where there was uh, in some chromosomes there was add-on chromosomes, and some there were if there is 23rd chromosome, then that 23rd chromosome might not be there. It might be basically there are pairs of chromosomes, but due to the radiations or chemicals, maybe there are three pairs. Okay, so influenced all this affected a normal development of a child. And also environmental pollutants and toxic waste like carbon monoxide, mercury and lead are also sources of danger to the unborn child. Alright, diseases like if the mother have diabetes, maybe it will also get transmitted to the child in the fetus itself. Alright, so these are some of the reasons why we say that the mother should take total precaution. So during this stage, prenatal stage, these are certain kind of threats. Next, we have infancy stage, the period of life between birth and the acquisition of language, approximately 1 to 2 years later, is regarded as the stage of infancy. Now, the brain develops at an amazing rate before and after birth. Just before birth, the newborns have most but not all brain cells, so the neural connections among these develop at a rapid rate. The activities needed to sustain life functions are present in the newborn, that is, breathing, sucking, swallowing, and discharges bodily waste. Okay, so these are the activities which are needed to sustain life functions are already present in the newborn. All right. So in the first week, they are able to indicate the direction of the sound. If you see a infant, you will see that wherever the sound comes, the child just follows the sound and looks towards the sound. Yes, then they can distinguish their mother's voice from other's voice. The way the mother calls the child will know, but the way the other uh, stranger calls the child, that also the child can differentiate the voice of the mother and that of a stranger. Yes, and that's the reason why often you'll see an infant crying the moment he or she feels that he or she is not uh, hearing or listening the sound, the voice of the mother. All right, then they can imitate simple gestures like tongue protrusion and mouth opening. Okay, so if you show tongue to the child will also imitate that. Okay, if you open the mouth, the child will also open the mouth. Now, in infancy stage, let's talk about motor development. Now, the newborn's movement is governed by reflexes. Okay, reflexes which are automatic, that is built in responses to stimuli. They react automatically to whatever stimuli they are surrounded with. So, they are genetically carried survival mechanisms and are the building blocks for subsequent motor development. And reflexes act as adaptive mechanisms. Adaptive mechanisms. So reflexes such as yawning, coughing, and blinking present in the newborn persist throughout their lives, and others disappear as the brain functions mature and voluntary control over behavior starts developing. Alright? Now in this slide, you will see some of the major reflexes in the newborns. Alright? Reflexes like that of rooting, Moro or startle reflex, grasp, and Babinski. Now here rooting means turning the head and opening the mouth when touched on the cheek. Many times you see that whenever you touch the cheek of a newborn, the baby will turn the head and open the mouth. Okay, and the developmental course it disappears between 3 and 6 months. Next, Moro or startle reflex. If there is a loud noise, the baby will throw her or his arms outward while arcing her or his back, and then brings the arms together as if grasping something. And this reflex disappears in 6 to 7 months. Although reaction to loud noises is permanent, whenever the baby will hear any kind of loud noise, the way the baby reacts, it remains permanent, but it actually disappears by 6 to 7 months. Okay. Next, grasp. Grasping, it's like when a finger or some other object is pressed against the baby's palm, the baby's fingers close around it. And this grasping reflex it disappears by 3 or 4 months, and it is replaced by voluntary grasping. That means the baby after 3 or 4 months will voluntarily grasp. Next, it is Babinski. Babinski means when the bottom of the baby's foot is stroked, the toes fan out and then curl. Alright, so when you stroke the baby's foot, even it's kind of a tickling also if you do, then the toes fan out and then it curls again. And this Babinski, it disappears in 8 to 12 months. So these are some of the major reflexes you will find in the newborns. Now, talking about the sensory abilities of newborns, uh, newborns are not as incompetent as they look. The reason lies in the fact that soon after few hours of their birth, the babies can recognize their mother's voice, and they also have other sensory capabilities. When we say sensory, of course we are referring to all the sense organs. Okay, and mostly they prefer to look at some stimuli rather than others such as faces, although it changes as the babies grow. So oftentimes the babies do not look for any kind of faces at that time, but they prefer to look at anything or any situation, any event that is happening, the surrounding, they prefer to look at those things. Next, the newborn's vision is lower than the adult vision. As you know that the normal average vision is regarded as 20 by 20. So by 6 months, the babies improves the visions, and by about the first year, vision is almost as same as that of an adult. But as soon as a baby is born, the vision is lower than the adult vision. Alright. Next, they might be able to distinguish between red and white colors, but in general, they are color deficient. That means although they can differentiate between red and white colors, but they cannot differentiate between all the colors that are available. If you bring uh, colors, vibrant colors like that of, violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, all these colors, if you bring in front of the baby will not be able to distinguish between the colors. This is the fact that they are color deficient. soon after they are born, but their full color vision develops by 3 months of age only. Alright, next, they can hear immediately after birth. So the hearing ability is there right from the time a baby is born, an individual is born. Alright, next, they respond to touch and they can even feel pain. So this is the uh, touch. Okay, they can feel the touch, they know that someone is touching them, and at the same time they can also feel pain. So their galvanic responses are also stimulating at the time of their birth. And lastly, they can smell and taste as well. It is not that a newborn will not be able to smell and taste. Their olfactory, their gustatory, their auditory, their vision, everything is what we are talking about under sensory abilities. Next, let's talk about the cognitive development. So there was a Swiss psychologist whose name was Jean Piaget, and Jean Piaget has worked for several decades on understanding children's cognitive development. What he did is that he stressed that children actively construct their understanding of the world. Okay, so according to him, information does not simply enter their minds from the environment. What happens is that as the child grows, additional information is acquired and they adapt their thinking to include new ideas as this improves their understanding of the world. Next, he believed that a child's mind passes through a series of stages of thought from infancy to adolescence. Okay, it doesn't remain stagnant or stable over time, but the mind passes through a series of stages of thought, according to Piaget. And each stage is characterized by a distinct way of thinking and is age related. So the child experiences the world through senses and interactions with objects. Objects through looking, hearing, touching, mouthing, and grasping. So through these senses and interactions with objects, the child experiences the world. According to Jean Piaget, the newborn lives in the present, and as such, what is out of sight is often out of mind of the newborn. For example, if you hide a toy in front of the baby with which the baby was playing, he or she would not react. He or she would react as if nothing has happened. That is, he or she will not search for the toy, and the baby assumes the toy does not exist. Even if you try and if you want to do an experiment with any newborn or any baby, you will often say this thing. This thing actually exists. It happens that if you hide a toy in front of the baby with which the baby was playing, actually the baby will act as if nothing has happened because the baby doesn't care that much, does not develop that attachment till that time because the baby is living in the present. There is no past and there is no future. No past, that means he or she was playing with the toy. And he or she doesn't even think that, in future also he or she will be playing with the same toy. Getting the point? So, according to Piaget, children at this stage do not go beyond their immediate sensory experience. That is, lack object permanence. There is lack of object permanence. Okay, so that's the reason why at this stage, that is at the newborn stage, they do not go beyond their immediate sensory experience. They are always at the present. Okay. Now, what is object permanence? We know that newborns still lack object permanence. So, object permanence is the awareness that objects continue to exist even when not perceived. Okay, and by age 8 months, the child starts pursuing the object partially covered in her or his presence. The basis of verbal communication seems to be present in infants, and vocalization begins with the infant's babbling, sometime between 3 to 6 months of age. Now, according to Jean Piaget, there are four stages, and he believed that all children develop according to four stages based on how they see the world. Okay, so he thought the age may vary some, but that we all go through the stages in the same order. So, according to Piaget, these four stages are sensory motor, that is birth to 2 years, pre-operational stage, that is 2 to 7 years, concrete operational stage, that is 7 to 11 years, and formal operational stage, that is 12 to 15 years. This is very important for you people to understand as well. Okay, you already have done it in the assignment, those who have done the first one in the assignment. So I hope you all have already gone through these four stages, and those who have not done this assignment, this topic, uh, not to worry, we will be doing this over here, and it's easy for you people to understand as well. I hope so. So, if we talk about sensory motor stage, according to Piaget, is from birth to about 2 years. And between these years, rapid change is seen throughout. So, at this stage, that is the sensory motor stage, the child will explore the world through senses and motor activity. Okay, the child will use as much as possible the sensory organs, the eyes, the hearing, the ears, okay, the olfactory, the gustatory, that is touch and smell and taste, all those things. Then motor activity will there. So from these things they will explore, they will try to explore the world. So every time you see that something or the other comes to the hand of the newborn, everything will go to the mouth, because the child wants to taste it, whether there is taste or not. So everything the child wants to just taste it. Okay. Then early on, baby can't tell difference between themselves and the environment. And if they can't see something, then it doesn't exist for them. So begin to understand cause and effect, and can later follow something with their eyes. So these are some of the things that the child will engage in at the sensory motor stage. Moving on to the pre-operational stage, that is about 2 to 7 years of age. At the pre-operational stage, the child have better speech communication, then can imagine the future and reflect on the past, which is absent at the sensory motor stage. Next, they develop basic numerical abilities. Okay, they can count, they can say the numbers. Still pretty egocentric, but learning to be able to delay gratification. So they are very egocentric. That is, they always are centering around themselves. They can't understand conservation of matter, and has difficulty distinguishing fantasy from reality. That is, cartoon characters are real people for them. Okay. Conservation of matter means understanding that something doesn't change even though it looks different. Shape is not related to quantity. Getting the point? Conservation of matter. That means understanding that something doesn't change even though it looks different. Shape is not related to quantity at this age, the pre-operational stage. For example, if you ask, are 10 coins set in a long line more than 10 coins in a pile? They will not understand that. Next, is there less water if it is poured into a bigger container? That thing they will not be able to differentiate and distinguish. Okay. Moving on to the concrete operational stage, that is from about 7 to about 11 years of age. At this age, abstract reasoning ability and ability to generalize from the concrete increases. And at this age, a child understands conservation of matter. Okay, moving on to the next, that is formal operational stage, which is from about 12 years to about 15 years. At this stage, the child will be able to think about hypothetical situations. Hypothesis by now you all know, and they can also form and test hypotheses. They can organize information as well, they can reason everything scientifically by the age of 12 to 15 years. Okay, so that is formal operational stage. So with this four stages, we get to know that how Piaget has studied all the stages. Okay, next we have socio-emotional development. Now babies from birth are social creatures. Why? As an infant starts preferring familiar faces and responds to parents' presence by cooing and gargling, they become more mobile by 6 to 8 months of age and start showing a preference for their mother's company. Yes or no? And when frightened by a new face or when separated from their mother, they cry or show distress. And on being reunited with the parent or caregiver, they reciprocate with smiles and hugs. That's the reason why babies from birth are social creatures, because they want to be surrounded by people, and especially their mother, and also other familiar faces. Now, with socio emotional development, we have attachment, the close emotional bond of affection that develops between the infants and their parents or caregivers is called attachment. Alright? So, in a classic study by Harlow and Harlow in 1962, baby monkeys were separated from their mothers approximately 8 hours after birth, and they were placed in experimental chambers and reared for 6 months by surrogate, that is substitute mothers, one made of wire and the other of cloth. Alright, now half the monkeys were fed by the wire mother and half by the cloth mother. So this was the study, this was a classic study carried out by Harlow and Harlow in 1962 itself, and this study was basically to find the attachment theory. And once the experiment has been set up, the monkeys were reared for 6 months by surrogate mothers. And surrogate mothers were made one with wire and one with cloth. Now, after this experiment, findings say that irrespective of the fact whether they were fed by the wire mother or the cloth mother, the baby monkeys showed a preference for the cloth mother and spent a lot more time with her. It shows that feeding was not crucial for attachment, but contact and comfort is important. Getting the point? So, young children also have a strong attachment to a favorite toy or a blanket when they know that it is not their mother, but it provides them comfort. And as they grow and become more sure of themselves, they abandon these objects. Yes or no? So human babies also form an attachment with their parents or caregivers who consistently and appropriately reciprocate to their signals of love and affection. And according to Erik Erikson, another psychologist, in 1968, the first year of life is the key time for the development of attachment. Very true. And it represents the stage of developing trust or mistrust. So, trust or mistrust is developed at the first year of life. A sense of trust is built on a feeling of physical comfort, which builds an expectation of the world as a secure and good place for the infant. Okay, an infant's sense of trust is developed by responsive and
Sensitive parenting. Now, if the parents are sensitive, affectionate, and accepting, it provides the infant a strong base to explore the environment. Now, such infants develop a secure attachment. Okay. On the other hand, if parents are insensitive and show dissatisfaction and find fault with the child, it can lead to creating feelings of self doubt in the child. So, securely attached infants respond positively when picked up, move freely, and play, whereas insecurely attached infants feel anxious when separated and cry due to fear and get upset. Okay, so with this, we get to know that what are the situations the infant or the child get attached, and if the parents are also sensitive enough to show their attachment, show their emotions to the child itself. All right, so here we have got everything that we need to know about an infant, the newborn. We have the Piaget's 4 stages, which is very important from exam point of view as well. So I request you all to please go through the 4 stages of Jean Piaget's. All right. Then Erickson's trust versus mistrust. What does it mean about all this? And then the attachment theory. Please go through it. And rest, whatever we have done, please go through it once again and try to understand it. And if you have any doubt, yes, of course, you can ask me. Thank you.